violations of human rights a lot. And obviously these human rights have been established by many conventions, including the Geneva Convention, by the United Nations as a whole body. Well, my question is, what has been done regarding these violations?
Yeah, that's the big problem actually.
Nothing.
And it's not nothing basically. But this is the thing. First, the United Nations is not what established international law. International law started existing before the United Nations. But the United Nations is more or less an institution that the strong powers in the world created in order to control how international law is being implemented, right? So our problem is mainly not with international law itself, but with the implementation. If a weak state that is not Israel in this case, and not America actually. It's not Israel is not the only exception. When America, when the United States, or even Britain or other countries, they violate international law, they manage to get a veto in order to prevent themselves from being held liable to their human rights violations. And Israel is lucky to have the continuous. I don't know if it's lucky. I mean, I wouldn't call it lucky. I don't call a criminal lucky for doing a crime, because that's not also good for them, right? But it has the continuous protection of the United States and the continuous veto always from the United States. However, in the law itself is still the law itself sees the Palestinian in the same way that it sees the Bosnian or the Norwegian or the it sees the Palestinian in the same way that it sees anybody else. But the implementation. So, for example, in the wall case, right? The wall is clearly illegal. The International Court of Justice, actually, when it was impossible to get the United Nations to denounce it and to punish Israel, actually, for building this wall and to force it to reverse this wall, the international community went and asked for an advisory opinion from the International Court of Justice, because this is a tool that is allowed through the United Nations General Assembly. So you don't need the American consent on it, right? So this big panel of 15 justices from the international community, none of which is actually Palestinian, had to sit and discuss the wall that has been built inside the occupied territory, separating Palestinians from Palestinians, and they found with 14 judges to 1, which is the American. I'm not saying that Americans are anything against Americans themselves, but it might say something about some politics. I don't know. But even this American, actually, he actually said that he's not saying that the wall is legal, but he thinks that the way the case got into the court was wrong, right? So he actually made sure that he clarifies in his decision so he did not vote about the legality. He just said that procedurally, the case did not reach the court in the right way and it shouldn't have been accepted as a case. But he did not touch the legality of it, right? But then the rest of the judges, they saw that the wall was illegal, right? That Israel had a legal obligation to stop building the wall, and it had a legal obligation to reverse the wall, and it had a legal obligation to compensate anybody who had damages, any kind of damages because of the wall, right? And there was a legal obligation to every state in the world that have signed the Geneva Conventions, every state, including the United Kingdom, including the United States, including any state that has signed the Geneva Conventions, is bound to do any measures possible in order to force Israel to respect its legal obligation. Because this is how the Geneva Conventions are. This is international humanitarian law, right? So there is a legal obligation on Britain and on America and on France and Belgium, right? Everybody has a legal obligation. However, when this was taken to the United Nations Security Council, the United States had to veto it, so it blocked it. And then when it was voted at the General Assembly, there were only 6 countries in the world that were against the implementation of this. law. However, here we come back to politics. Politics play an important role, even when something is so clear that it's illegal, and there is so much consensus in the world that it's illegal. You still cannot, and that's why the movement, the PLC, the different movements here say you have to boycott, because you are actually participating by boycotting yourself. You're actually making your own contribution into punishing the regime that is creating this.
Okay, thank you. Obviously I don't know as much about it as you do, but the impression I get is that a lot of the problems, the structure of the UN, like as you were just saying, I found it surprising that during the lecture you didn't mention America more, because since the establishment of the UN Security Council, they've vetoed over 30 proposals of actions against Israel. And I just wondered, do you think it's possible for there ever to be a decent human rights, like a decent implementation of human rights laws, while the structure of the UN stays the same, with just these 5 countries with veto powers? Because America's always going to veto action against Israel because they've got such a big Jewish lobby in the Senate. Do you think it's ever possible? Like I said, do you think it's ever possible for good implementation of the human rights laws while America has its power, while the UN is structured in that way?
Well, I would say 2 things actually. First, I think that the way the UN was constructed has lots of corruption in it, in that it doesn't treat everybody equally, and it makes sure that there is some power given to these great powers over the rest of the world. However, so I would love the UN to be changed, right? But this is a very big international thing to happen, and it needs so much pressure from different countries around the world and lots of politics. However, what we can do now is we can do a lot now, whether we are here, whether we are in the United States, whether we are in different places, in order to just simply make it clearer to the world. Get everybody to know what's happening and understand it, and then we make an anti-lobby to this lobby that is making sure that these violations continue, right? So we try as much as possible to create another lobby in order to advance this cause of implementation. It needs lots of struggle, it needs lots of discipline, it needs lots of information. I think information can do a lot, but I really don't know how. I don't know really if the international system is going to be helpful. I don't know. I think we are in trouble in this system, but I still think that we can get, and also the system is improving in a way. There are several instruments that have been used against other countries. I mean, we have gotten rid of the apartheid eventually, but not through the system, not through the UN actually, but through other measures. So we need to use other ways. The UN is not going to liberate Palestine, and the UN is not going to end the problem, I think. But the UN is not everything. It's just one international organization, and we are all human beings eventually, and we all have brains, and we all can find instruments that will go beyond this UN, and that's why it's important to.
Can I just? I think the greatest hope for Palestine comes from Egypt and the liberation of the people out there. I think that's where there's a much stronger prospect, I think, for liberation. But about the lobby, I mean, I'm not so sure about the Jewish lobby people talk about, because the Arabs have quite a lobby with America, don't they? And I think it's not necessarily a Jewish lobby in America. I think it's America's interests, whether it's Arab or Jewish lobbies.
I'd call it Zionist.
Yes, well, okay, but I think, Bob Crow, the leader of one of the unions, said the other day there should be a no-fly zone over Israel, and I think that's right, because the hypocrisy of Bahrain and Saudi Arabia, Libya has been bombed. The hypocrisy of their interests, how they will hide, and I think that it's in America's interests, it's politics, to keep Israel on side, on their side. I think that they'll always trump human rights. They don't care about human rights. They're looking at their politics. They're looking at interest, looking for oil. They're looking for Iran. They're looking for the whole domination in that region. And I think that's what the problem is the politics rather than the lack of implementation of the human rights. And I think, hopefully, it will be through the actions of the Arab peoples themselves that can rise and take, the Palestinians up and hopefully bring the Israeli people together as well, because they're not gaining from this, are they? The Israelis, ordinary Israelis, are living a life. What sort of life are they living? And I think there's conflicts, there's class conflicts in Israel, and I think people got to realise where their interests lie, and it lies more with the Palestinians, I think, really, and with their leaders.
Can I just interject here? When you said that, because historically I thought there's a strong Jewish lobby in America, I wasn't aware of the lobby.
I think the Arabs get a lot of money from America, and they deliver, don't they?
The Arabs actually give a lot of money to America, as much as Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia alone pays about 17% of America's bills, basically.
Well, I think there's too much made of the Jewish lobby. I don't think it is just a Jewish lobby. I think people say, if it wasn't for the Jewish lobby in America, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. And I think it's more than that. I think it's more than political interest from America, no matter who. It's lobbying them to keep Israel with them and against.
Is the Arab lobby united like Jewish lobby, or do they have one aim? Mentioned Saudi Arabia, Egypt, it's there's a strong lobby that
There's no strong.
Well, they're strong when they protect the regime.
I wasn't aware. I'd like to know that because I'm not Arab.
Well, what I'm saying is, this whole idea that it's the Jewish lobby, it's the Jewish lobby, I don't believe it's just the Jewish lobby in America. I think that's strong. But I don't think that's the function. I think it's America's own interest, not because they're, pressured by the Jews. So,
Obama came. I really thought that thing began to change because his interest in Arab people, his